I'd like to welcome all of you to the Montgomery County Republican Women's Forum. I'm Alice Melanson, and I'm president of the Montgomery County Republican Women, and we welcome all of you. They're still working on the sound system in the back. There's a dead spot that they're working on, so have a little bit of patience with us. I will ask all of you to please take a moment to silence your cell phones. Later is going to be our first vice president in charge of programs, Virginia Miller. And I'll turn it over to Virginia. Take my phone.
Thank you, Alice. Good evening. This is a great crowd. We're delighted you're all here. I will be moderator for tonight's forum. We really appreciate all of you candidates for your willingness to serve and for your attendance at our forum. And we thank all of you that have come tonight to hear the candidates and be well-informed voters. That is so important. As all of you know, we're going into the most critical election of our lifetimes, and we cannot afford to be uninformed, and we cannot afford to be silent, and we cannot afford to just talk. So let's get on with it. We have a few ground rules. They are as follows. We have a long-standing record of civility at our forums. We expect all candidates to adhere to courtesy and respect for each other and for all present. We will not tolerate any rude behavior or vulgar language on any occasion. Our timekeepers, Charles Melanson and Jim Osborne, will hold up a 30-second warning sign at that mark, and they will ring a bell when your time is up. You will stop talking at that point out of courtesy and respect. We have a very full agenda, and we simply can't afford anyone to take more time than their allotted time period. Donna Barr and Betty Osborne are serving as candidate hostesses, and they will assist with a smooth flow of the program, and everyone is seated in order, so it's really important to crisply adhere to that. Again, if you're hot, there's water donated by Judge Tracy Gilbert. It is at the entrance to the room. Please help yourself. There's plenty of it, and we have a very warm room. If you need a water and are unable to get up, please let one of the Montgomery County Republican women in the room know, and they will bring you a water. We're officially 5 minutes ahead of schedule already. Aren't you all excited? Our first race will be U.S. Representative District 8. We have two candidates in attendance tonight, Congressman Kevin Brady and Mr. Larry Youngblood. Please come forward and take your seats at the table. Here are the ground rules. They're going to be pretty much the same for everybody. Each of you will be allowed a 30-second. Brady, please introduce yourself to the attendees.
Virginia, thanks for having me, and thank you for the club for hosting this. I'm Kevin Brady. I'm your neighbor, and as you know, one of the best decisions we made was to never move to Washington. I live here in Montgomery County, commuted every week for 16 years, nearly 2 million miles, flying back and forth, and I hold myself accountable to you as taxpayers. I hold more than 50 town hall meetings a year. I never forget who I work for. I'm anxious to keep fighting for you. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Youngblood?
Yes, my name is Larry Youngblood. I live in Leon County. I've lived in northern Harris County most of my life. I'm a graduate of Texas A&M University. I've also been in the school board at Cy-Fair, the third largest school district, very large budget. We lived under our budget when we had to. I have a wife, 2 kids, 8 grandkids, 1 in the barrel, looking to run this race to try to get our Congress back on track for not spending as much as we've been spending the last 12 years.
Thank you. First question is presented to Congressman Kevin Brady. What specific budget cuts would you promote to drastically reduce our current federal spending and begin serious reduction of the national debt?
Specifically, I'll just go. There you go.
Yeah, you can't hear back in there, so
Thank
you
you,
need to
Doctor.
talk about.
Great. Specific budget cuts, I would say there are 3 models we can follow. One is the Ryan budget we passed out of the House here. As you know, the Senate hasn't passed a budget in 3 years. House Republicans are doing their job. Secondly, we House conservatives have introduced the only budget that balances the budget within 5 years. Unfortunately, we only had 136 of us in the House who supported that aggressive budget. And finally, I've gotten some notice for a bill I introduced, the MAP Act, It basically puts guardrails around future spending. It shrinks the government by 1/4 this decade, sunsets obsolete agencies, gives every president line item veto, and ends forever the threat of a government shutdown. That takes the budget not just into balance, but shrinks it down to the size where we can actually start paying off our national debt.
Thank you. Same question.
Same question.
Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, ma'am, please.
What specific budget cuts would you promote to drastically reduce our current federal spending and begin serious reduction of the national debt?
Specifically, we must start with the Department of Education. It needs to be severely cut back. We need to start next with the Department of Energy. It needs to be severely cut back. The Department of Education was put in place to increase graduation rates. After 40 years, all we've done is spend money. Let's cut the tax rate. Let's get rid of the Department of Education. Send that money back to the taxpayers. I don't want it block granted back to the state. I want it to go back to school districts where it can be used effectively. Department of Energy, same thing. Was supposed to get rid of our dependence on foreign oil. The Department of Energy has done nothing but drive us nuts with their EPA type things for salamanders in West Texas. They've shut down the pipeline. There are too many things that need to be done. We need to shut down the EPA. We need to shut down TSA. It's totally obnoxious to our way of life. I can go on for there, but let's just leave it there for now.
Thank you. Congressman Brady, second question to you, please. What specific measures do you suggest to repair the damage done to our economy through non-legislative overregulation by the EPA and the Department of Energy?
Well, the first thing we can do to get this economy back on track is repeal this president on November 6th. That is absolutely the strongest thing we can do. And then we have a tougher task because the EPA, not just the EPA, but frankly, I've never seen regulation on steroids like we're seeing today. It affects every part of our industry, from agriculture to medicine to our energy. And today, Virginia, we're seeing an attack on American energy, on Texas energy like we've never seen before. So our challenge will be, the House has already passed bill after bill to defund the EPA, to roll back these regulations. All of those are sitting in the Senate, and this president's blocking it. We're ready to send those same bills out to defund all that overregulation. We need a Senate and a president who will work with us to actually get America back on track, allow our oil and natural gas to move forward. And frankly, we do all that, we'll get this economy back on track again.
Thank you. Mr. Youngblood, same question. What specific measures do you suggest to repair the damage done to our economy through non-legislative overregulation by the EPA and Department of Energy?
Again, as he just said, the first thing we have to do is repeal Obamacare. Now, we don't want to replace it with anything. We want it to go back to the private industry. We do not want to repeal and replace. At this juncture, the EPA going after salamanders in West Texas, and when they talk about having us pave all our streets and roads in West Texas, not realizing there's not that much asphalt, then what do they say? Well, why don't you just spread water on it to keep the dust down? Now, that kind of stuff from people coming out of Washington who don't know anything about the oil and gas industry. I was in the oil and gas industry my entire life. I worked for an offshore company. I've done a consulting job since then. The EPA has been a nemesis. It needs to go, just like many other departments. Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Great.
How about a round of applause for these two candidates? Our next race is for the State Board of Education. Barbara Cargill was not able to be present. She has instead brought Kristen Berger, who is her surrogate and will speak only in the introduction. She will get 60 seconds for an introduction. Ms. Berger?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Virginia. I have the honor of representing Barbara Cargill here this evening. Can you hear me?
That's better.
Is that better? I need to put my mouth directly on it.
Is that better?
Can you hear me? Thank you. This is Barbara's 8th year serving on the board, and last July, Governor Perry appointed her to serve as chair. She considers it an honor to lead the board. Barbara firmly believes in the positive way that the board can influence the teaching and learning in our classrooms. Why is Barbara running for the board again? Well, as a teacher and a mother of 3 boys in public schools, she has a passion for children and their education. She wants every child to be successful in college and the workforce. Barbara wants to continue diligently fighting for academic rigor in our classrooms, and the liberal agenda is trying to erode our students' core knowledge. But Barbara votes to strengthen academics, and the conservative vote keeps prevailing. Some of the results she wants to share. Is that not good?
Try that, it's a microphone.
Okay, thank you. Some of the results she wanted me to mention to you this evening are that our Texas classrooms are improving significantly. For 4 years, Texas's ACT scores have increased. The Texas class of 2011 posted a record high math score on the SAT. Our latest National Assessment of Educational Progress, that's the NAEP, test scores are impressive. African American 8th graders were first in the nation, Hispanic students 8th, and white students 2nd. On the 4th grade test, African American and white students ranked 3rd. In 2010, Texas on-time graduation rate was a record 84.3%. Thank you.
Ms. Berger will not be allowed to answer questions in place of Ms. Cargill. Will now go to Dr. Linda Ellis for her 30-second introduction, and then she will respond to 2 questions.
I'm Linda Ellis. I am a native Texan. I grew up in the Volga community in Houston County, Texas. I am a graduate of Lovelady ISD and a graduate of public schools, public universities, including I have an undergraduate and master's from Sam Houston State and a PhD from Texas A&M in curriculum and instruction. I have 4 children who graduated from Texas public schools and 14 grandchildren. 11 are currently in Texas public schools. I'm also a Texas educator, 28 years combined experience as a classroom teacher, university professor, a district program director, and a consultant working in low-performing schools across the state. Thank you.
All right, first question for Dr. Ellis. How will you personally combat the deliberate erosion of our state and national history and the removal of God from our national discourse promoted by the left via omissions and deletions of historical facts from our school textbooks?
Okay, well, the textbooks are now no longer called textbooks. They're called instructional materials. That's been changed. Senate Bill 6 recently returned those decisions to the local level, which I applaud, because now local educators will be able to make those decisions about the instructional materials. I think the closer we get those decisions to the child, the better the education will be. And that means that the teachers in partnership with the parents. So you as parents will be able to be involved in the process of selecting those instructional materials at the local level rather than at the state.
Thank you. This is the second question for Dr. Ellis. Give us your personal views on reinstating prayer and pledging of the American flag in our public schools on a daily basis, both within the classroom and at athletic events.
That's outside the realm of the State Board of Education. I would say that that's a legislative question. We do have a minute of prayer, not prayer, we have a minute of silence in the schools and where children are encouraged to say their prayers and encourage and respect others around them to be able to express that. I mean, I have my own personal beliefs. I'm a Christian. I go to church on Sunday. I tell my children Christian principles. I believe that we have to obey the law of the land, and until that changes, we can't change it ourselves. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you concluded?
Oh, yes, I'm
All
sorry.
right, thank you very much, both of you, for attending tonight. How about a round of applause? And Mr. Steve Toth, gentlemen, please take your seats.
Thank you.
You will each be allowed a 30-second introduction. Then you will each be presented the same 2 questions, and you'll have 90 seconds to respond to each question. Representative Eisler, would you please give your introduction?
Yes, so thank you. Thank you for doing this. It's great to have everybody here, and I would vote for prayer in schools. So I just thought it'd help as a legislator. Anyway, my name's Rob Eisler, and I'm a Navy veteran, 33-year resident of Montgomery County. All my kids were raised and educated here and in Texas universities. I've been a community servant and leader through most organizations, and have risen to leadership roles in those. And I'm a legislative leader where I happen to be the, holy mackerel, that's bad.
Mr. Toth?
I am Steve Toth. I'm a candidate for House District 15. I'm not a politician. I'm not an attorney. I'm just a dad and a small businessman that loves Texas and is deeply concerned about the course that we're on right now. Over the past 10 years, while the state has grown 23%, spending has increased 44%. And according to the Texas Public Policy Foundation, we should be spending about $45 billion a year if you look at our population growth adjusted for inflation, but we're spending close to $90 billion. It's unsustainable.
Thank you. First question presented to Representative Eisler. What specific steps would you promote to legislatively allow prayer to be reinstated and to allow the teaching of creationism in our public schools?
Well, it would probably come through public education. And in fact, we did have a bill that allowed the Bible to be taught as a course in our public schools. And am I in it? Okay. All right. So using the legislative process about a bill that would get support, we've got a supermajority right now of Republicans, and that's a bill that would pass, and we have a governor who would sign it. Of course, it would be challenged in court, but Texas has a pretty good record in court now, and I think we would survive that.
Thank you. Mr. Toth, same question. What specific steps would you promote to legislatively allow prayer to be reinstated and to allow the teaching of creationism in our public schools?
I would support any legislation that would promote that. As an ordained minister and as a dad that just has seen the havoc that taking God out of our schools and out of our culture has played on families, I would want to see us do everything we can to reinstate it.
Thank you.
We already have a lot of prayer during exams.
Silent.
Okay.
Representative Eisler, second question to you. What exactly is the rainy day fund and where does it stand now?
Well, the rainy day fund is an economic stabilization fund that uses the monies that are let's say excess to the budget that goes in and builds up. Now, what happens? Where does it stand now? I think it's about, I want to say 4.25, and it's used when a current budget, like the last one, not the one we just passed, has used up all remedies, and we used about $2.5 billion to balance what was left of the cuts from this previous budget. It should increase, and it's been projected to be above the 7.1 that it was at its best. And I think with a lot of well, I don't think anybody's looking to spend any of it. Okay, and it's really for state emergencies and emergency expenditures that aren't covered in either current budgets or and as we all know, in the 10th Amendment, sometimes the feds will come down and cause us to have to spend some money, and that is really what it's going to be aimed at.
Thank you. Mr. Toth, same question to you. What exactly is the rainy day fund and where does it stand now?
Where it stands right now, at the beginning of the 82nd legislative session, they dipped into it for $2.5 billion because of a known budget shortfall that was coming. They underfunded education at the 81st legislative session by $2.5 billion. In this session, you can shake your head, but in this session, they're going to dip into it again for $2 billion. This budget is not balanced, and we should not be using the rainy day fund to balance the budget.
Thank you. How about a round of applause for these two candidates? Our next race will be for State Representative, House District 3. We have 3 candidates present. Dr. Troy Bonin, Mr. Cecil Bell, and Mr. Bob Bagley.
The microphone, don't turn it.
Please talk directly into the mic, and you're going to need to be pretty close to it. Each of you will be allowed to make a 30-second introduction. Then I will present the same 2 questions to each of you, and you will each have 90 seconds to respond. First, to Dr. Troy Bonin. Would you give us your introduction, please?
Yes, my name is Troy Bonnet, and I practice dentistry out in Magnolia. I'm a native Texan. I'm a father of 10, affectionately call my 10 arrows. Married to the same beautiful wife for 23 years, and I went to pre-med for my undergrad, went to University of Texas Dental Branch Medical Center for my post-grad, and currently working on my second doctorate for immunology, cancer research, and endocrinology. And I thought I'd do a part-time job as well by running for the state legislature.
Thank you, Dr. Bonnet.
Yeah.
Next, we'll hear from Mr. Cecil Bell.
Okay, I'm Cecil Bell Jr. I'm a sixth-generation Texan. Family's been in Texas since 1852. Moved to Montgomery County in 1993, where we live at the same residence, the same house site that we've been at since that time. Married 21 years, 2 kids, both products of Magnolia ISD and the Magnolia West campus is actually the one they're graduating from. I currently serve as the school board president. I'm in my 3rd term. I'm also the chairman of our Economic Development Partnership and our T-Close training facility.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Bob Bagley.
I'm Bob Bagley. I'm a Gulf War Vietnam vet, disabled vet. I'm a resident of Montgomery County since '97 when we came here and retired. I was a single dad and decided that we've got too many problems going on in our nation. I had to stay involved and got involved with the Republican Party and started working on issues.
Thank you, Mr. Bagley. Now I'm going to present a question to Dr. Troy Bonnet. First question, how do you view the role of the Texas legislature in securing our citizens in light of the many failures of the Obama administration to secure our borders?
Well, obviously, securing the borders is a big problem for Texas. Am I speaking too close? Can y'all hear me? Okay. And, you know, the bottom line is if we don't take control of our borders, we're going to continue just to have an influx of problems. It's going to be in crime as well as medical care. I'm in that particular arena specifically, and I deal with such issues. So, you know, Obama's failure and their the case they currently have against Arizona on the federal level. You know, Texas Attorney Abbott currently has 10 legislative lawsuits against the federal government that's in the federal branches right now. And I support all of those. I just think we need to reassert our 10th Amendment right as a state, and we need to be able to secure our borders. And it's just basic common sense. It's common math. You know, people say all the time, Doctor, what are you going to do when you get up there? Because you're going to have to compromise. You know what? I'm tired of compromising sense. We need common sense. Let's just get back to basics. And that would be my suggestion, to start with the borders.
Thank you, Dr. Bonnet. Next, Mr. Cecil Bell, same question. How do you view the role of the Texas legislature in securing our citizens in light of the many failures of the Obama administration to secure our borders?
Well, first, I do think it is a federal issue. I think securing the border is a federal issue. With that said, there are things that we as a legislature should be able to do. We should be able to enforce the laws that are on the books so we don't have to wait on new legislation, new laws. We need some tort reform in place so that we don't put our Border Patrol agents in jail and leave the criminals on the outside, so we don't put our law enforcement, our sheriffs in jail and leave the criminals on the outside. Certainly the cost is enormous for allowing it to continue in the manner that it is in now. We need to enact legislation that prevents people who are not here legally from being able to access all of the services and programs that they're currently being able to access. And again, likely that is a federal challenge in the court system. We see an overreaching court on a regular basis. But those costs belong to us, and we need to be able to enact legislation that allows us as a state to address those costs in a comprehensive manner. So I would support any legislation and would carry any legislation that resulted in comprehensive efforts to secure our borders, or our border. I think the Oklahoma and the rest of those borders are all right, but the Mexican border. But to secure our borders, certainly I would support any comprehensive legislation to tighten border security and to support local law enforcement and state law enforcement agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Now to Mr. Bob Bagley, same question. How do you view the role of the Texas legislature in securing our citizens in light of the many failures of the Obama administration to secure our borders?
As a prior cop, as a prior Air Force enlisted member, I swore to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution is being overlooked by the federal government. We have federal laws that our cops are allowed to, police officers are allowed to enforce. If they can enforce drug laws, which are federal crimes, if they can enforce bank robbery, which are federal crimes, if they can enforce forgery, which is a federal crime, if they can enforce money making, which is a federal crime, why can't we secure our borders? It's not a federal crime. It's a crime, period. We've had good legislation that was put back in the 80th legislative session. Debbie Riddle put some good legislation in there. It went again in 81, the 81st legislative session, and again in the 82nd legislative session. Because we had poor leadership from the top, from the Speaker of the House, none of it got passed. It's a disgrace to me as a Republican that we had 101 Republicans and we didn't pass anything on closing our borders.
Thank you, Mr. Bagley. Next, we go back to Dr. Troy Bonin with question number 2.
No, are you sure you want me to be first? Hey, okay.
What have you personally done to promote and grow the Republican Party in Montgomery County in the state of Texas?
Well, I've had 10 children. You know, I've been practicing medicine for 20 years in the area. I've been in Spring, the Champions area, now Magnolia for about 10 years. And you know, when it comes to running a business, or I should say when it comes to running the state of Texas, I like to say all the time, if I can run a household of 10 kids, I think I can run the state of Texas. I say that jokingly. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, I don't know if I'd vote for you, Dr. Bonham, but I'd surely vote for your wife. But, it's true. And no, I just believe that we need to get our spending under control. If we're going to, Texas is going to flourish, we need to, I've said this more than on one occasion, the legislators need to stop acting like a bunch of drunk teenagers and with a credit card and start fiscally handling our tax dollars responsibly. That's what I think. And without being, yes, thank you, without being rude, I think I'm the man to do it. Listen, I want to say this without bragging, because I remember one time I got on the side of the bed in medical school because I almost quit. My wife put her arm around me and she said, honey, you can do it. And I went on to finish medical school, only one of 2 men in the history of UT to finish in 3 years. I say that because if you want to get the job done, I'm the man who can do it. I believe that. And so I ask that you vote for me so I can get the job done.
Thank you, Dr. Bonin.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Cecil Bell, same question. What have you personally done to promote and grow the Republican Party in Montgomery County and the state of Texas?
To promote and grow the Republican Party. Well, I think the Republican Party is founded on strong capitalistic principles, starting 6 businesses and employing Texans and driving the Texas economy, being fiscally sound-minded and bringing those same concepts to all of the different efforts that I put forth as a contributor through the different community agencies, whether it's the school board or the education foundation or whatever. I think we have to bring sound, strong business acumen back into the legislature and bring it to the forefront, because that's how you promote the Republican Party. The Republican Party is based on the strength of our fiscal sound-mindedness. So find people who have demonstrated fiscal sound-mindedness, who you can look backwards at and see what their habits are, see what you get. As far as the party in and of itself, you know, I have been quick to do the things that I can. Yes, sir. Thank you. To promote the party as a whole. But again, I think the value side of the party and pushing Montgomery County to grow economically and to be strong and vibrant is the biggest and best thing you can do for the party, is to be a strong fiscal conservative, standing strong for our traditional values. Those are the things that you can do to strengthen the party, and that's what I've done.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Now, Mr. Bob Bagley, same question. What have you personally done to promote and grow the Republican Party in Montgomery County and the state of Texas?
One of the first things I did when I came here and I started getting involved was to volunteer at Republican headquarters. I did that off and on for 2 years. I've gone to every precinct convention. I voted in every election. I've run most of the precinct conventions. I've gone to every senatorial convention, and I've either been a delegate or an alternate at every state convention. I believe in our platform. Our platform starts off at the lowest that it possibly can, and that's at the precinct convention. Our platform starts there, then it goes to the senatorial district, and then it goes to the state. It's voted upon by the state. We have the best platform in the United States, in the state of Texas. And I've answered every one of the questions. I've answered every platform initiative that's there on how I felt about it. I think that it needs to continue to grow. I think that we need to continue to push it. I think that we need to start holding our Republican leaders to the platform. And if they're not voting for the platform, if they're not voting the way that we have said what we want it done through the grassroots, then they need to find a new job. Thank you.
Questions from our unopposed candidates? You can please come forward. Is Christy Craddock in the room? Don't see her. J.R. Moore, our county tax assessor and collector, please.
You up here?
60 seconds, please.
I'm J.R. Moore. I'm your tax assessor collector for Montgomery County. I've been in office for 25 years. I currently have 63 employees working diligently for you. I've saved you $1.6 million annually on collections by consolidating with 64 jurisdictions. I'm currently working towards getting driver's license and renewals through my office to further serve you money and save you time. And the bottom line is that's something that's long been in the works, and Senator Williams is diligently standing beside us trying to get it done, but it just looks like we're going to go back and do some more legislation. The other thing that I'm proud of is we finally put something together for scofflaws, where we're going to be able to enforce the $30 million that's owed to the county for those people that have outstanding fines and fees, and they'll be the ones paying for it, not you, the taxpayer, because we're levying an extra $20 on them thanks to Senator Williams and Representative Eisler. That means the person that violated the law will pay for that. If there's something I can ever do for you, remember, I'm just right.
Thank you, J.R. Judge Michael Seiler, 435th District Court.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mike Seiler. I am the judge of the 435th District Court. I want to tell everyone here that I'm in charge of all the sexually violent predators in the state of Texas. There was legislation that was passed by Senator Williams in our Health and Safety Code. I deal with the commitment of 50 of the worst sexual predators the state of Texas has to offer. Every 2 years after they've been committed, I'm over their case. I get to determine whether or not that commitment needs to continue. Judges cannot tell you how they are going to rule in the future. That violates our ethics, but I can tell you how I ruled in the past. I haven't let anyone go yet. So, I want to thank everybody for coming out here tonight. It's very important that you know who you're voting for. And as an elected official, I can appreciate that in a personal way. So again, thank you very much.
And Sheriff Tommy Gage. And that is the Texas Sheriff.
Thank you, Ms. Virginia, and certainly it's an honor to be here. This August will be 42 years for me in law enforcement. I started my law enforcement career with the Houston Police Department in August of 1970, came to Montgomery County with the work of Joe Corley in 1982. Ran for sheriff, was elected, took office in 2005. I'm in my 8th year as your sheriff, and I can tell you I look forward to the next 4 years, and thank you for your support. Thank you to the Republican women for having us. Thank you.
You will be happy to note we are now 30 minutes ahead of schedule. I'm a worst case person, so I'm excited we're that far ahead. We now have two candidates for the 9th District Court, the Honorable Fred Edwards and Mr. Kelly W. Case. You gentlemen will each have a 30-second introduction. Then I will present 2 questions. Since we're so ahead, I think I might do 3 questions to these gentlemen. You will have 90 seconds each to respond to each question. Judge Edwards, would you please give your introduction?
I am Judge Edwards, and I'm the judge of the 9th District Court, and I've served there for 20 years. I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I do a good job, and by my list of endorsements, I think a lot of other people agree with me. I love my job. I love what I do. And with your help, I'll continue to be able to do a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly Case.
My name is Kelly Case. I'm running for this office for several reasons, mainly quality. I'm a board-certified attorney. I've been board-certified for the last 4 years. I'm one of, now 70, I have to say 70 lawyers in the entire United States that's certified in gas chromatography, member of the American Academy of Forensic Scientists and the American Chemistry Society. I'm running for this office for several reasons. Obviously 30 seconds, I can't give them all to you. If you'd please go to the website, I'd be happy to share all that with you. And any questions you have, I look forward to answering them. We're going to stick around for that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. First question goes to Judge Edwards. Please describe your most significant contribution to the development of the law in terms of a case you handled either as a judge or as an attorney.
Well, probably the biggest case I tried was the Huntsman case, which dealt with an $8 billion lawsuit on a merger acquisition that was international news. And my rulings there helped save that company. And it was resolved. But the one that probably had the most impact was FinFin. I was the first judge in the country to certify the class action against American Home Products that produced FinFin. And then that followed with me serving with the feds out in Philadelphia with the MLB and the effect that had on the whole country. That a lot of other cases followed that, certifying and using bad drugs that cause cancer and cause death by using class actions and then making it effective. It was a large impact on not only the law but on the country as a whole.
Thank you, Judge Edwards. Mr. Case, the same question. Please describe your most significant contribution to the development of the law in terms of a case you handled either as a judge or as an attorney.
I think the most significant cases I've handled are death penalty capital cases. I'm the only candidate that's tried those from both a prosecutor side of the table as well as a defense side of the table. Obviously, there's a lot of emotions in those cases, and they're very, very important to both the families of the victim and to the defense, if you're the defense attorney. They're very difficult to try. They are the most complex cases we have on the basis of science as well as the basis of the law itself. I'm happy to say I think I've been successful at every one of those I've tried, both as a prosecutor and a defense attorney. I know that sounds funny. As far as other contributions to the law, I've circulated an idea to some of our legislatures with regard to what I call the right of first recusal. We have a judge that's not following the law or deciding he's going to legislate from the bench. I'd like to have the opportunity to get that judge off my case. And so I proposed that to our legislators, and I'm hoping in this next session they will present that to the floor and we can get that passed.
Thank you. Judge Edwards, next question to you. Describe your views on media within the courtroom and on management of high-profile media cases where the judge must weigh privacy and fair trial issues against media demands for access.
Well, that's a tough issue, and I've had many high-profile cases. Uncle Hilty, you remember, 15 years ago, was followed nationally. Recently, we had this tragic event which landed in my court, which drew national attention. And Swearingen, another capital murder case that drew national attention. The international case with Huntsman drew a lot of media attention. And the issue is that people want to know about these cases, and they have an impact on their lives, and they see it on the news, and the news wants to have their little 30-second clip. So what I've had to do is balance that, because you don't want the media to try your case. Otherwise, you're going to have the messes that we've had in Florida and other states.
And what you have to do is you got to control the media, and that's a very tough thing to do. The media is like a hungry dog and just wants to eat all the time. So I've done very well with that in these high-profile cases that I've had, and I think that I can handle those very well. You've got to keep the rights of the victims probably more important than most judges give. I give a lot to, and those victims need to be able to be handled well, and not to be beat up by the media or by anybody else. And they need special attention, and that's who I care about: following the law and helping the victims.
Thank you, Judge Edwards. And Mr. Case, the same question to you. Describe your views on media within the courtroom and on management of high-profile media cases where the judge must weigh privacy and fair trial issues against the media demands for access.
I agree with Judge Edwards in that there needs to be a balance, but my balance falls a little bit differently. There's only one person in the entire courtroom that's entitled to a fair trial, and that's the defendant. That's what our Constitution says, and I plan to uphold that no matter what. Now, the media coming into the courtroom is a new since the 80s, we've had court TV, and that was when we first saw the media coming into the courtroom. I don't see anything wrong with keeping them out of the door. If we're going to have a fair trial and not have them influencing jurors and chasing jurors home and interviewing jurors when they're in the box, I have a problem with that. I've seen too many people influenced by Twitter and Facebook and the internet, jurors getting on the internet and researching the case while they're in the box deciding the case. And that's a problem, because the law says you should only rule the case from the evidence that's admissible. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you guys. It's hard to turn my neck that way. The law says that the only evidence should be admissible is the evidence that's considered, or the only evidence that's considered is the evidence that's admissible in the courtroom. So I have a serious problem with the media interfering with that right. I am not pro-defense, I'm not pro-state, but I do believe in the Constitution, and I plan to fully uphold it. Now, how do you balance that? That's the tough part. And I agree with Judge Edwards that there has to be a balance, but I fall a little bit more strongly in excluding the media if they're not going to respect the right for a person to have a fair trial and receive their due process in their day of law.
Thank you, Mr. Case. And now back to Judge Edwards with the third question. Describe the most difficult case you have ever handled, either as a judge or as an attorney.
It's interesting that you asked that, because I was talking about this the other day to one of the assistant DAs. The civil case is about money. Lawyers are fighting about money. Personal injury case is about money. Family law cases can be the most difficult. My hat goes off to Judge Gilbert, who hears only family cases. I mean, family cases are tough. But probably the most toughest criminal case I've tried in the recent memory was a car accident where a young man was racing, and he hit a van with 5 people on board. He killed 4 of the people in the van, and one of them, and his passenger died. 5 deaths. It was one of the toughest cases. The surviving woman testified. It was heart-wrenching. I would say that intoxication manslaughter cases are the most difficult cases to try, because it is so tragic for everybody involved. They are extremely difficult. But that one case sticks in my mind. Outside of all the murder cases and the child cases, that case of those 5 dead people just really stuck to me. Very difficult.
Thank you, Judge Edwards. And Mr. Case, the same question to you. Describe the most difficult case you have handled, either as a judge or as an attorney.
I'm assuming by difficult we mean emotional. So the most difficult case I've tried was a young man who was in his younger 20s. His father had passed away 2 days before the incident. He had gone on a drug binge and had schizophrenia, severely mentally handicapped when he was off of his medication. He was found walking in the dark down a highway by 2 patrol officers who thought they had found a robber. They were looking for somebody else. So the 2 officers, unfortunately, got out, beat the man down, held him in cuffs for 6 hours, sprayed him with mace in the eyes while he was on the ground and handcuffed, would not let him wash it out. He passed out from a severe concussion later that night, and they were taunting him while he was in jail. We had all this on video. We all want to support our police officers, and we're all taught that they're few and far between. But let me tell you, when you see something like that, and you see one of those few and far between officers, and luckily that didn't happen up here, I'm glad to say, it shocks your conscience to think that somebody could treat another human being the way that this young man was treated. I literally watched a person before my eyes on video almost beaten to death, and that was a shock. That was the most difficult thing I've ever done. I'm glad to say we sued that city in civil court in federal district of Southern Texas, and we won a judgment of $130,000, I believe. Now here's the unfortunate part. That young man left a year later and shot and killed a police officer. And I still have nightmares about that.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Great job, both of you. Let's give these fine gentlemen a round of applause. We'll give his introduction.
I'm Tracy Gilbert. I am your judge of the 418th District Court, which hears only family law cases here in Montgomery County. I grew up here, kindergarten through high school, along with my wife. Came back after law school, practiced for 17 years. I ran for this bench 4 years ago because I believed a family law court should be run by a family law specialist. I'm the only board certified candidate in this race, and I hold 3 board certifications, something only 126 attorneys out of 88,000 hold.
Thank you. Ms. Siegel, your 30-second introduction.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Siegel, and I am running for the family court bench. I have been practicing law for over 12 years. I am a civil trial lawyer. I have done all types of civil trial, although over the last 6 years I have done mainly family law. I am drawn to family law, and I believe that I bring a unique perspective to the bench.
Thank you, Ms. Siegel. Now I have 2 questions, and I will present the first question to Judge Gilbert. Distinguish the 418th District Court as a designated family court from the function of other district or county courts that also hear family law matters, and describe how that benefits the parents and children of Montgomery County.
I call the 418th a specialty court. We're required by statute to give preference to family law matters. Many of our other district courts, well, all of them are general jurisdiction courts, meaning they hear some family, some civil, some criminal, although we're slowly moving. Judge Mychalk hears only felonies. Judge Edwards hears primarily civil. We're the largest county in Texas that doesn't have all specialty courts. I believe that we need to make that change. Why? We are more efficient as specialty courts. What does my court provide for you? A faster day in court. We are there every day hearing nothing but family law matters. If you get a case, a family law case that lands in another court, they might hear those cases 1 week per month. So we provide you faster, greater access to court, and in my belief, also better experience and expertise from your judge who is hearing nothing but those types of cases. I am currently the local administrative judge, meaning the other judges elected me to, quote, be the judge over the other judges, and we are, hopefully after May 29th, going to continue to make a move towards possibly specialty courts or caseload equalization to make all of our courts more efficient for the litigants.
Thank you, Judge Gilbert. And now, Ms. Siegel, that same question. Distinguish the 418th District Court as a designated family court from the function of other district or county courts that also hear family law matters, and describe how that benefits the parents and children of Montgomery County.
Well, as Judge Gilbert said, the 418th is specifically designated as a family court, much like you would see in Harris County or Dallas, where there are family courts, there are district civil courts, and there are criminal courts, and everything is specialized. In theory, the advantage to both parents and children who are dealing with family matters is that the judge is dealing only with family matters, and so therefore has the experience and has the day-to-day procedures in place to be able to do a better job at getting those cases through the court and onto getting it through. As it stands right now, however, I don't believe that the court is doing that. I am concerned about what is happening with some of the cases and the children, that the children's voices are not being heard in the 418th, and that the measures to protect the children during litigation are
Thank you,
not
Ms.
being
Siegel.
made.
And now, the second question will be presented to Judge Gilbert. Detail your experience and/or expertise in the area of family law, including years of experience, board certifications, number of cases handled, etc.
Well, like I said earlier, after I got out of law school, I returned back here and practiced law in the Woodlands for 17 years, primarily focusing on family law. During that practice, I became board certified by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization in 3 areas of law, including family law. There are 88,000 Texas attorneys. 700 of us are family law specialists. A little over 100 of us, Nelda's another one, have 3 board certifications. So I think that, and you got to jump through hoops, take tests. It's unbelievable how hard it is to attain these certifications. I did that so I could prove to my clients and potential clients as an attorney, you want to hire me. 4 years ago, I ran for this bench because I think a family law court should be run by a family law specialist. How many family law cases have I handled? Over 10,000. How many has my opponent handled in Montgomery County? 0. I believe that it is a clear decision in 2 weeks for you as elector or as voters to decide whether you want someone with experience and expertise in family law to be your family law judge or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Gilbert. Ms. Siegel, the same question to you. Detail your experience and/or expertise in the area of family law, including years of experience, board certifications, number of cases handled, etc.
Although I'm not board certified in family law, I certainly know family law. I know civil procedure. I know the law. And as importantly, I am the mother of 4 children, and I'm a single mother, I'm a widow, and have been raising those children on my own for the last 6.5 years. And through that experience, I believe that I bring a unique perspective to the bench, and I have paid for every single thing that those children have done, and I have made sure that my children have everything that they need, despite the fact that they lost their dad. I believe that going through a divorce process is much like any other loss. And because my children have had the experience of losing a parent, I think that that gives me a perspective to be able to understand and use the resources that are available to our family judge to be able to protect the children the best we can during the litigation process.
Thank you, Ms. Siegel. Thank you both for coming tonight. Let's hear a round of applause for these 2 candidates. And Mr. Gilbert Garcia, all candidates for district attorney. Again, each of you will be allowed a 30-second introduction. Then I will present 2 questions to each of you, and each of you will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. The first introduction will be District Attorney Brett Ligon. Mr. Ligon?
My name is Brett Ligon, and I'm running for re-election as your district attorney based upon a record of results that include reducing intoxicated manslaughters by 70%. We have eliminated Lake Conroe as being one of the deadliest lakes in the state of Texas with 0 fatalities in the last 3.5 years. We seek and get long and life sentences for felons, habitual criminals, and child molesters. we've created specialized programs for the county.
Thank you, Mr. Ligon. Next, Ms. Tracy Pullen will give her 30-second introduction.
Thank you. I'm Tracy Pullen. I'm a lifelong resident of Montgomery County. I have the most prosecutorial experience, and I'm asking to be your district attorney. Being tough on crime is easy. Sending child molesters and rapists and murderers to prison will happen no matter who is in charge, because you, the jurors, will send them. More importantly, when your friends or family are charged with a crime, be your son, be your daughter, what do you want the district attorney to have? You want them to have reason and discretion, and I believe there is room for reason and discretion in the DA's office. Thank you.
Ms. Pullen. Mr. Gilbert Garcia will now give his 30-second introduction.
My name is Gilbert Garcia, and I'm running for district attorney. The theme of my campaign is fearless. Not me, you. You should not be, as a law-abiding citizen, in fear of our police. The main thing that I want to convey to you is I'm board certified in criminal law. I've been board certified for 23 years. I've been a lawyer for 33 years. And I have an active practice that is...
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
talk to you later.
Garcia. Now I'm going to present the first question to District Attorney Brett Ligon. What specific trial and prosecutorial experience do you possess that qualifies you to serve as district attorney?
When I applied for the Harris County District Attorney's Office, I was one of 6 out of literally 1,000 applicants who were selected to be in the pre-commit program. That was based upon strong academic performance at South Texas College of Law. I was a varsity advocate under Professor Gerald Treese. When you came to the District Attorney's Office, they essentially throw you in the deep end of the pool. In less than 3 years, I've tried approximately 50 cases, ranging from anywhere from Class C's all the way up to felonies, first-degree felonies. And then when I went to practice representing officers with the Houston Police Officers Union, obviously you continue on in that career representing officers charged with everything from murder to official oppression. Since I've taken office as a district attorney, I've continued my practice, and I've tried 2 murders, 2 habituals, an aggravated kidnapping, and several other things, while continuing to help the district attorney's office reduce crime in the community and speaking throughout the community on a weekly basis. And lastly, I've probably made approximately 40 scenes involving intoxicated manslaughters, murders, and other homicides somewhere in the middle of the night. And we're doing it to help protect this community.
Thank you, Mr. Ligon. Now, Ms. Pullen, same question. What specific trial and prosecutorial experience do you possess that qualifies you to serve as district attorney?
As I said, I have the most prosecutorial experience in this race. I prosecuted for you directly out of law school. I dedicated my career to public service, and I would have stayed there, honestly. And I loved my job as a prosecutor. I've tried over 40 trials. I really don't keep in track of the Class C trials. Those kind of go on and on. But of those trials, one of them was a capital murder. Casey Kantak was sent to prison for life. And that's where she deserves to be, and that's where she will die. As to, prosecutorial experience, I think that's really important that as a prosecutor, you have taken an oath to do justice, and that oath is one above any and all attorneys, and you are a special breed of people. It takes a special type of person to do that, and what I will promise you is that I will commit to serving you, the people of Montgomery County, keeping you safe, working with law enforcement while allowing law enforcement to do their job, not interfering with their scenes, allowing them to do their job. They are specially trained and amazing officers in this county, and my hat is off to them. Credit goes where credit's due, and I salute them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Mr. Gilbert Garcia will now answer the same question. What specific trial and prosecutorial experience do you possess that qualifies you to serve as district attorney?
I have been a lawyer for more than 33 years, more than both of my opponents combined. I am the only board certified lawyer in criminal law. Neither of my opponents are board certified in criminal law. I have been board certified since 1989 for 23 years. So I've been doing this for a very, very long time. My experience actually started out serving you in the United States Army. I joined the service and actually was a prosecutor and a defense attorney for the JAG Corps. I had the unique opportunity to prosecute in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Fort Hood, Texas, Fort Sam Houston, and Panama. I defended in those same places and did a circuit. The interesting thing and kind of the neatest thing about it is, in the Army, you don't have a choice. You try a lot of cases. I tried more cases in the Army in those years than either of my opponents combined. Since then, I'm the only candidate that has handled both capital murder as the prosecution side and on the defense side. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Now we go back to District Attorney Brett Ligon for the second question. Mr. Ligon, describe the role of the District Attorney in relationship with law enforcement to protect the community as a whole.
First, to address Gilbert, actually Gilbert may be older than Tracy and I combined, so that's where he gets a lot of that.
That's true too.
Although we both have gray hair. Now, what is the role of the district attorney? The Code of Criminal Procedure sets it out straight. The role is to seek justice. Now, when you have a district attorney's office that's proactive like ours, and with the support of Sheriff Gage, Constable Chumley, all the other constables, what you have is I try to eliminate the patches between the agencies, number one. And so I'm always talking about a multi-agency approach. For example, what you saw last week, this is National Child Awareness Month. And so we initiate a warrant program. We do the same thing for National Domestic Violence Month. And we do that in conjunction with all of the law enforcement agencies. We gather the warrants, I give the speech, I tell them what the law is in regards to how you can make entry, whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor. Specifically, you can deal with how we handle the scene at night while we have the DA's response team. Because when it comes to a capital murder case, there's nothing like having a prosecutor there on the scene that can say, hey, Tom, you don't need a search warrant. You can go because you've got exigent circumstances. You don't need to wait and hear that call. We need to go save that kid. And so having a prosecutor who's there on the scene, and prosecutors, a 24-hour intake, and in conjunction with the sheriff and all the other law enforcement, it's supposed to be an enhancement. This is a law enforcement agency.
Thank you, Mr. Ligon. Next, Ms. Tracy Pullen will answer that same question. Describe the role of the district attorney in relationship with law enforcement to protect the community as a whole.
I agree with Mr. Ligon. You do work hand in hand with law enforcement, but I disagree about something. Law enforcement and the district attorney's office are separate. They are separate entities, and they need to be separate. There are times when you support law enforcement 100%, because you've got to remember, they are out on the streets, they're seeing what's going on, and they are emotionally charged and tied, as they should be. That's what we want law enforcement to be. We want them to be out there and be vigilant, and we want them out there doing what they believe is right on the scene. The district attorney's office has a different role. It is to review the cases that come in, to decide what cases need to be prosecuted, and handle them appropriately. There are times when you have to look at law enforcement who are your friends, and you look at them and you say, we are not taking this case. I do not agree with, that's not true. You say, I agree with your arrest. I agree that you did everything right on the scene, but when it comes to it, we cannot go forward because that is not justice. There is a role, there is a separation that must exist. If you do not, you start having higher dismissal rates. And right now, in misdemeanor for 2011, there's a 50% dismissal rate. Why?
Because we dismiss hot checks.
Well, that's not true. There's a 50% dismissal rate because the cases aren't being evaluated appropriately at the front end, and innocent people are being prosecuted.
Now the same question goes to Mr. Gilbert Garcia. Describe the role of the district attorney in relationship with law enforcement to protect the community as a whole.
Thomas Jefferson started our country on separation of powers. The reason he did that was a fear of government. The problem that we have right now in this district attorney's office is there's a green light for everything law enforcement does. And the problem with that is this: when it's your Fourth Amendment, when it's your Fifth Amendment, when it's your Sixth Amendment being violated, who is there to stop them? Right now, the district attorney has a SWAT vehicle, district attorney's response team. The problem with that is this: that perception of being one with law enforcement won't work. You have to be able to tell them no. Just like when Kelly Case got up and talked about beating a defendant. You have to be able to say no. Now, don't get me wrong. You have to work with them, help them get trained, help them in the cases, and be as supportive as you can. But at the other time, you can't be one with law enforcement. It is just patently wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia, and thank all of you for coming tonight and sharing your views with the attendees here. Let's have a round of applause for these candidates, please. Next, we have the race for county attorney. We have Ms. Phyllis Rainey, Mr. J.D. Lambright, and Mr. Gary Beecham. Please take your seats. Each candidate will be allowed a 30-second introduction. Then once again, I will ask 2 questions of each candidate. They will each have 90 seconds to respond. First, Ms. Phyllis Rainey will give her 30-second introduction.
My name is Phyllis Rainey. I'm a native Texan. I've been a resident of Montgomery County for 36 years. I have practiced law for 37 years. 27 of those were with an oil and gas company. I was Associate General Counsel for Tenneco Oil Company, and I was a counsel with Benson & Elkins. For the past 10 years, I've been Assistant County Attorney for Montgomery County, and I am proud to have been in that office. I've worked in every section of that office, and I believe I'm the most qualified for this job.
Thank you, Ms. Rainey. Now Mr. J.D. Lambright will give his 30-second introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am J.D. Lambright. I want to be your next county attorney. Proven legal experience, successful business results. That's what I bring to this. I'm unique in this race. I'm in my 38th year of business. I'm proud to say 100% of that is in the private sector, not in the government sector. I'm also proud to say there's wonderful lawyers in this room. I know virtually every one of them. But 25 of my 38 years, I was an electrical engineer, a geophysicist, and then for the last 12 and a half years, I've been a lawyer. I think that combination of skill set, experience, management of budget, and people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambright. Mr. Beecham will give you his 30-second introduction.
Good evening. My name is Gary Beecham, and I want to be your county attorney. My website is votegaryb.com. I'll let you compare my qualifications there. If you elect me to be your county attorney, I'm going to aggressively defend all the lawsuits against this county. We will no longer write these people a check and send them home. We're not going to be hiring outside attorneys anymore. We're going to be doing things in-house. Elect me, we will make the office efficient and fiscally conservative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we go to questions, I did want to give a quick description of this office. This is sort of a mysterious office to a lot of folks. And I think it's very important that we all know what we're electing. What is the office of the county attorney? It was a mystery to me until about 3 or 4 months ago, and so I thought you might want to know this. Duties for the county attorney consist of knowing Texas labor, tax, election, and local government codes in order to provide the county with legal representation. They handle involuntary commitments, juvenile and child protection service cases on behalf of the county. They represent the county in lawsuits, giving advice to all county departments, and overseeing the county commissioner's court agenda in order to answer questions that arise during meetings. So now we know who we're electing. Let's hear from the candidates on these questions. The first question will go to Ms. Phyllis Rainey. And the first question is, what specific relevant experience would you bring to the office of county attorney that would benefit the county and its citizens?
In my 10 years as assistant county attorney, I have worked in every section of the county attorney's office. I've handled litigation. For the past 9 years, I have been the chief legal advisor to Commissioner's Court and to every department. I have written over 900 contracts in the past 9 years. I have negotiated with just about every governmental entity in this county. I have written every law, ordinance, policy, and procedure that has come out of the county attorney's office in the past 10 years. I've worked with law enforcement very closely, and I have their endorsement from the sheriff and the Montgomery County Law Enforcement Association. The work of the county attorney is vastly different from representing a client outside of the governmental entity. We have to know all of the statutes. There are many, and it is very complicated, and the county cannot do anything that the statutes don't allow us to do. And I think it is critical that we have the kind of experience that I bring to the office.
Thank you, Ms. Rainey. The same question will now go to Mr. J.D. Lambright. What specific, relevant experience would you bring to the Office of County Attorney that would benefit the county and its citizens?
Well, as you're going to hear tonight, amongst the three of us, by the way, our county attorney is retiring. That's why that's going to be an open seat here. There's over 100 years of experience sitting before you tonight. I'm at the top of that heap with 38 years of experience. And I think you need to keep in mind what you're electing here is not somebody to sit in a back office, draft contracts, draft ordinances, somebody to lead, guide, direct, and manage the office. It goes without saying you've got to be a good lawyer, and that's what I've been doing for 12 and a half years. I deal with the county attorney's office every week for about the 12 years. I was in court today. I'm in court almost every single day fighting these kind of cases, representing parents, representing individuals, representing children, and other entities. And I think that breadth and depth of experience, we can't keep doing the same thing we've done. Our county attorney is a fine gentleman. I highly respect him. He's been in that office 21 years. We can't keep doing the same thing we've always done. And I think that non-legal experience I bring, just think about it. How well is it working for you in Washington and in Austin, where most of our legislators, all they've ever done is be a lawyer? It's a fine, noble profession, but it takes a lot more than that to be effective as your county attorney. And that's what I bring to it, this proven business experience for 25 years, managing projects and people all over the world, but in court every day for the last 12 years, handling all the same kind of cases that the county attorney's office handles, civil, criminal, and family cases. That's what I do for a living. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambright. Mr. Gary Beecham will now respond to the same question. What specific, relevant experience would you bring to the Office of County Attorney that would benefit the county and its citizens?
Well, first of all, I'm the only candidate that has a Bachelor of Business degree from SMU. I've been a practicing attorney here in South County for 32 years. I've appeared before every one of the judges that are here this evening and everyone that wants to be a judge here this evening, just about. Over those 32 years, I've handled everything from administrative law cases to deciding zoning violations while I was the presiding judge in the city of Oak Ridge North. I bring a wealth of experience to the job. You're going to need somebody that can not only be a trial lawyer, which I am, but somebody that can be a business manager. I've run my own private practice here for 32 years and done well here. South County and Montgomery County has been very good to me. My clients like me, thank God, and unlike JD, I'm proud to be a lawyer. I worked hard to be a lawyer. I went to school during the day, I worked at night, and then when I went to school at night, I worked during the day. It's a good profession. I enjoy it. I can bring my 32 years of experience to the county attorney's office and turn that office back around where we will quit settling lawsuits without taking them over to the courthouse. We've got a nice courthouse over there. Let's start using it and quit writing these people a check. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Beecham. And now we'll go back to Ms. Phyllis Rainey. And the second question presented to Ms. Rainey is, what changes would you implement in the operation of the county attorney's office that would impact the financial and economic position of Montgomery County?
One of the things I want to do is to make some corrections to the hot checks department. We have not been able to collect on those for a long time, and we need to be sure that the vendors get their money back, they get restitution, and the county gets their fees. I have been working on several projects for the county, including tow truck regulations, I have been working on the forensic facility. We're looking at making a change there where the county can get some more money in to pay for that facility. I've worked with every department and every program that has come up. And I would also like to make a few more changes to the litigation section. We've got some excellent lawyers, but we're very, very short-staffed. Most of our cases we're able to dispose of by briefing, but there are some additional things that we need to do, such as in the subrogation section. And having been in the office, I know what needs to be done. And I would like to make one correction. I do have a Bachelor of Business Administration from Sam Houston State University, and I was an accountant for 6 years before I started practicing law 37 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rainey. And now Mr. J.D. Lambright will respond to the same question. What changes would you implement in the operations of the county attorney's office that would impact the financial and economic position of Montgomery County?
Virginia, thank you. That's a great question. I think we need to not get into the minutia of the county attorney's office. I think we need to look at fundamental philosophical changes in the department. The notion, the business world figured this out a long time ago of doing more with less, and all the governmental entities just want to keep spending more money and more money. The thing I'd want to do we have the right people in the right jobs? There's some fine people in the county attorney's office. I know a lot of them. But do we have the best people to serve you, the taxpayers? I think there's tremendous things we can do in that office to prove the effectiveness and efficiency in the operation of it. Like I say, I deal with them every single week. And coming in as a private businessman, I own my own law company. By the way, I am proud to be a lawyer. I wouldn't be one. I was astounded when I started working with the county attorney's office, not in the office, but interacting with them a decade ago or 12 years ago. It's seemingly no concept of money, efficiency, dealing effectively with people's time and the taxpayers' money. And that's what I bring to it. I've been doing that for 38 years. You got to bring the proven legal experience, but keep in mind what this person does. It's not drafting ordinances. That's not what the county attorney does. County attorney is overseeing a staff of about 30 people. That's what I've done throughout my career. There's about 15 of those people that are lawyers, and I've handled every kind of case. The rules of civil procedure are the same. The rules of evidence are the same. You just have to step in and do the job and be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambright. Now Mr. Gary Beecham will respond to that same question. What changes would you implement in the operations of the county attorney's office that would impact the financial and economic position of Montgomery County?
Well, like I said before, first, we're going to quit writing checks to the plaintiffs. We're going to make them prove their cases. Secondly, we're going to quit hiring outside counsel to come in and represent Montgomery County. We're going to do things in-house. Thirdly, we need to look at the hot check division. It's a moneymaker. We're not making any money with it. We need to be innovative with how we get those people run down, research done on them, where we can get them in contact, and get them in, make them pay the fine, and we have the money back into the county fund. We need to look at road and bridges. Getting a plat map out of the road and bridges is 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a month. We need to get that speeded up and adjusted and fixed. There's some great folks in the county attorney's office, and maybe they're not in the right job. Maybe we've got a litigator over there doing road and bridge. We maybe need to move some folks around, let their true talents come out. I feel you have to lead by example. I'm a hard worker, and everybody who would work with me would be a hard worker as well. We need to get back on track, reduce the amount of money we're spending, and quit under the theory of we have all the money in the world and we have all the time in the world, because we don't. We need to put a stop to the spending and start using what we have on board as we have it today, and not be looking for the county to give us more money or more staff or more anything. We need to work with what we have. Vote for Gary Beecham. I will make the county attorney's office.
Wade, gentlemen, each of you will have a 30-second introduction followed by 2 questions, and each of you will have 90 seconds to respond to each of the questions. And we're still 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Senator Tommy Williams will now give us his 30-second introduction.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this event tonight, and thank you for allowing me to serve you in the Texas legislature for the last 16 years, the first 6 as a House member and the last 10 as your state senator. It's been a great honor for me. My service has been about results, not rhetoric. We balanced the budget without raising taxes. We cut the budget by $15.2 billion. We protected the rainy day fund, which will have over $6 billion in it when we go back next session, and we passed voter ID. Thank you.
Senator Williams. Now Mr. Michael Galloway will give his 30-second introduction.
My name is Michael Galloway. I'm a candidate for State Senate District 4. This is an office that I previously held back in the 1990s when I defeated a 32-year incumbent Democrat to become the first Republican elected to this office since 1876. I'd like you to take a look at my website. You can find out more about me. It's electgalloway.com. But for more than 20 years, I have worked to help build a Republican majority in Texas. And we've had that now for 10 years. And I thought that I was building a conservative majority.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway. I will now present 2 questions. The first question will go to Senator Tommy Williams. Senator Williams, what have you personally done to grow the Republican Party in Montgomery County in the state of Texas?
Thank you, Virginia. Well, as I've supported this club financially as well as our local county party, and I've also supported the state party financially. If you'll look at my record, when I was first elected, 3 of the counties I represented were Democrat controlled. By the time I left the House, we'd converted all those over to Republican counties. We've done a similar thing in the Senate. We're still working in Jefferson County, but we've made progress. That's been one of the bluest counties in the state. So I've worked hard to help build a Republican majority in many ways, and that's just a few of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Williams. Mr. Michael Galloway will respond to the same question. What have you personally done to grow the Republican Party in Montgomery County and the state of Texas?
For more than, as I was saying, for more than 20 years, I have worked to help build a Republican majority. I started down this path in 1991, taking on a Democrat incumbent who was the most powerful member of the legislature, a fellow by the name of Carl Parker out of Port Arthur, Texas, in Jefferson County. No one would run against him because they were afraid of him. So I stepped up to the plate, took him on, and after 3 years of building a diligent grassroots effort, I defeated him with 53% of the vote. I was the highest Republican vote getter, Tommy, in Jefferson County, in fact. But I'm the only one who has ever challenged an incumbent Democrat. In fact, I did it twice. I have done it 3 times, actually. And I defeated one of them significantly, and the other one actually bowed out of the race after I challenged him. So I've done quite a bit to do this, but I've always worked to build a conservative majority. But since I left office, the legislature has passed the largest budgets in history. They've increased the largest tax increases on business. They've allowed property taxes to escalate at double-digit rates because of rising escalations. And they have done virtually nothing, despite what may be said, to fight illegal immigration in this state. In addition, we have simple things like, you talk about the voter ID bill. I passed the voter ID bill out of the Texas Senate in 1997. It was watered down by the Democrats in the House because we had Democrat majorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway. And now we'll go back to Senator Tommy Williams. The second question is, please tell us your specific plan to manage Texas water resources to ensure adequate fresh water for Montgomery County over the next 20 years.
Thank you, Virginia. One of the things that we've done here is create a groundwater reduction plan and a plan to convert our county over to surface water. A very important part of that was securing control of the water that was in Lake Conroe. 2/3 of that water was owned by the city of Houston, and I personally got involved and negotiated an arrangement with the city of Houston for us to gain control of that water. That's one example of how I'm bringing results to the folks here in Montgomery County. On a larger scale, we have got to address this issue so that we have the money in the legislature to build new reservoirs, because if we don't do that, we're going to find that the growth of our state will be limited by a lack of adequate water. So we're facing some real serious challenges about our water supply for the state over the longer term.
Thank you, Senator Williams. Mr. Michael Galloway will now respond to that same question. Please tell us your specific plan to manage Texas water resources to ensure adequate fresh water for Montgomery County over the next 20 years?
There is, there's a lot of water in the ground in this state, and particularly in Montgomery County. The problem with most of it, after you get past a certain depth, the salinity goes up, and you end up with a brackish water, and you go deeper, and you end up with salt water. But there are large reservoirs in Montgomery County that have mildly brackish reservoirs in it. That I think that we need to take a serious look at desalination of some of these reservoirs. It is actually becoming more and more viable and more cost-effective through technology and pump technology in order to do reverse osmosis. And it's something that's really not been looked at a lot. They do it all over the world as far as water resources. And I think if we turn to the private sector, because I'm a true capitalist, and I believe there's no problem that the free market cannot resolve. And I think that is one of the big issues that we really need to look at, that has kind of been ignored in this whole picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, in the interest of time, I would like to ask your indulgence a little bit. I have a third question for these gentlemen, just as I did on one of the previous races. Since we are 30 minutes ahead, I'd like to go ahead and present this question. First, we'll go to Senator Tommy Williams. Voter ID was passed during our last legislative session. It is currently under attack by our criminal attorney general, Eric Holder. Please give your views on that legislation and why it should stand.
Well, thank you, Virginia. I played a critical role in getting this bill passed. Session before last, I made the rule change and stood up for a 6.5-hour debate on the rule change so that we could bring this issue to the floor. I think that the Democrats have taken the bait, that what we have is we've got a perfect case now that will end up before the Supreme Court to overturn Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. And that is what has really messed up our redistricting and laws like this for years, for decades. And this is our opportunity to get that law overturned. And I fully support our Attorney General Greg Abbott in those efforts and will continue to do so. Just as a point of reference, the bill my opponent talked about from 1997 wasn't watered down in the House. I was a member of the House. It was never considered in the House. Mr. Galloway's bill was watered down in the Senate by an amendment that he agreed to that said, okay, if you don't have to present an ID if the election judge says he knows you. And so with that, the House never felt like that bill was worthy of consideration, and it was stuck in committee the entire time.
Thank you, Senator Williams.
Yeah, Tom, you're not exactly accurate on that. Actually, it was rolled into the omnibus bill by Patty Gray. Yeah, go back. Patty Gray personally called me and asked me if she could roll it into the omnibus bill. The House was controlled by Democrats at the time. But before 1997, you could walk...
We are on a time constraint, and everybody else has abided by the rules.
Okay, I thought it was a...
We're not having responses, so you get a 90-second response time on the next question, and then you could use part of that if you wanted to.
Okay, okay.
You're going to have 90 seconds. All right, the final question now goes to Mr. Michael Galloway. Voter ID was passed during our last legislative session. It is currently under attack by U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder. Please give your views on that legislation and why it should stand.
Okay, I apologize for that. I thought I was taking my 90 seconds at that time. It should stand. And I do not disagree with Tommy on what the AG's doing in that lawsuit there, because we've been singled out with, I think, 10 other states, and I think in pure violation of the Constitution of the United States under equal protection clauses, that we never should be under these Voting Rights Acts and under different standards than all the other states in the Union other than these 10 states. And hopefully we will get a good ruling on this and get removed from that and will not have the Justice Department breathing down our neck. But back to the voter ID bill, it is legislation prior to 1997 you could walk into any polling place in Texas and cast a ballot without even being on the rolls. We were coming off the motor voter laws of the Clinton administration. I recognize this. I drafted the legislation and passed it through with Democrat majorities in the legislature. So there it is. Thank you.
I have a quick additional question to the from the floor. To add to that, I will first present it to Senator Tommy Williams. Would you explain Section 5 so that everybody in the room will know what it is?
Sure.
Thank you.
Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act is part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and it requires that states who were previously members of the Confederacy, so it applies to about, I think, 13 or 15 states, that we pre-clear any changes to our voting laws. It's wrong. It is absolutely wrong. And we've positioned this case, and I had a part in doing that. We patterned this after the Indiana law. Indiana's voter ID bill has already been through the Supreme Court and been found to be constitutional. So now you have a case that will be before the Supreme Court where one state is being treated one way and we are being treated another way because we're subject to this separate federal law. So I've worked with the Attorney General. We actually, thought this through in the beginning, and I also went, when we argued the Supreme Court case on redistricting, to see, and I think we've got the votes on the Supreme Court to get this repealed this time.
Okay, and thank you, Senator Williams. Mr. Galloway, you will have 90 seconds also to comment on that issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say. I mean, it's exactly what I was talking about. We are being treated different than all those other states in the Union, and it's a violation of the Constitution. And it's high time that we did have that law challenged. What I'd really like to do is ask you to go to electgalloway.com, take a look at my website, take a look at the issues that I'm talking about. The reason why I'm running is because I believe we've had a lack of leadership with the Republican majority for more than 10 years. We find ourselves still talking about the same issues that I was running on when I first ran in the 1990s against the Democrats. This simply cannot stand any longer. We need strong conservatives who are willing to fight for the values that we've worked hard for to try and bring through in our legislature. I ask you to go to my website, take a look at it. If you like it, I would like to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you for coming. And let's have a round of applause for these two candidates. All right. Our next race is Montgomery County Constable Precinct 2. I'm going to read a quick description of this office as well. This is kind of one of those mysterious offices for me and some others, so I thought we could all benefit from this information. In Texas, constables and their deputies are fully empowered peace officers with county-wide jurisdiction and thus may legally exercise their authority in any precinct within their county. Some constables' offices limit themselves to providing law enforcement services only to their respective precinct, except in the case of serving civil and criminal process. Constables and their deputies may serve civil process in any precinct in their county and any contiguous county, and can serve arrest warrants anywhere in the state. The duties of a Texas constable generally include providing bailiffs for the justice of the peace courts and within their precinct, and serving process issued there and from any other court. They also sometimes provide patrol, investigative, and security services as well. All right, with that background information, we're going to get started. We have three candidates here tonight. We have Constable Gene DeForest, Mr. David Womack, and Mr. David Moore. We will begin with Constable Dean DeForest. He will give his 30-second introduction.
With nearly 40 years in law enforcement and 11 plus years as your constable, I'm the first graduate of the Constable Leadership College of Sam Houston State University. Married to my wife for 37 years, 27-year-old daughter, and the light of my life, my 5-year-old grandchild. She's the one that keeps me young.
Thank you, Constable DeForest. And now Mr. David Womack will give his 30-second introduction.
My name is David Womack. I've been in law enforcement for 31 years. I worked for the Conroe Police Department for 25 years, retired in 2005. Talked to the Sheriff Gage, and he was more than happy to put me on. I hope you were more than happy to put me on. Stayed there for 6 years, then retired again. I've been talking to my wife about this position for a while, running for it, and so she gave me the okay. You got to clear it with your wife first, and she gave me the okay to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Womack. Now Mr. David Moore will give his 30-second introduction.
Good evening. My name is David Moore. I am qualified and prepared to be your next constable. I was born and raised in Montgomery County. Been here all my life. My law enforcement career has been with the sheriff's office here. I'm married to my wife, Brenda. I have 3 grown children, 7 grandchildren. I've spent my entire law enforcement career with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. That's 28 and a half years. I'm a lieutenant. I prepare a yearly grant and budget totaling almost $1 million yearly.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Now each of you will get 2 questions, and you will each have 90 seconds to respond to each question. First, we'll go to Constable Gene DeForest. In what ways has your law enforcement experience prepared you to be the best constable for Precinct 2?
Well, we're nearly 40 years in law enforcement, doing everything from patrolling the streets to being a detective working white-collar crimes, and now being your constable for the last 11 plus years. Doing civil process schools, probably 400 or 500 hours worth, plus being a graduate of the first Texas Leadership Constable College out of Sam Houston State University. The experience that I have in the office, working for you, working hard for you, my office has grown to be one of the offices that does all the civil process work throughout Montgomery County. We are the clearinghouse for the civil process. Everything comes through our office. We work hard. My office works hard for you. Professionalism, pride, honesty, and integrity is what I believe in. It's what I've built this office on. I believe that this office is responsible for all the civil process that comes out of the district courts, the county courts, the JP courts, everything that comes out of the Attorney General's office for child support. We handle all that. We handle it in a very professional and prompt manner. We are bound by law to serve civil process, mandated by law to serve it in a process in which a timely manner and is served properly. And we do it very professionally, and we do it with pride, honesty, and integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Constable. Mr. David Womack will now answer the same question. In what ways has your law enforcement experience prepared you to be the best constable for Precinct 2?
Well, over the 31 years, in the last 6, I was a supervisor over the narcotics unit for Sheriff Gage, at which time I was able to really control and see how budgets and what kind of budgets that need to be done to run an office. We had probably about 9 people working in the office at the time, including the secretaries and analysts. Putting the overall thought to the process, I'm just not going to use my office to serve papers. You got to get more bang for your buck nowadays. I think that's why everybody here shops at Walmart to get more bang for your buck. Am I correct? I am correct. Thank y'all very much for responding. But the bottom line, the office is going to respond to the needs of the community. Just not only serving papers, but getting out there and helping law enforcement protect you and your property. The bottom line is, people, nowadays you've got to get out there, help the other law enforcement agencies, because you can't do it by yourself. Conroe PD can't do it by themselves. The sheriff's department can't do it by themselves. We all gotta work together. If we can all work together, we will protect you in a more safer, easier way. Plus, the cost will go down because we won't have one person, one agency, such as the sheriff's office, taking care of 90% of the problems.
Thank you, Mr. Womack. Now, Mr. David Moore will respond to that same question. In what ways has your law enforcement experience prepared you to be the best constable for Precinct 2?
When I started with the sheriff's office, I started in the jail. I learned, I worked my way up, I become a patrolman, I become an investigator, and I made rank, and I've been administrator over this grant. Dealing with all the proceedings I have to do with this grant, going to Austin, I go to state hearings. I think this has prepared me to deal with the public, plus the fact that being a lifelong resident of Conroe will help me deal with that. I have goals, just like David said, more visibility in the precinct with the constables units. Initiate a community policing program. That's putting the units out there, talking to the people, not on calls, just stopping and visiting and getting to know the people, and people will help you. The community is your best ally to fight crime. And I think something that's never been done, as far as I know of, with constable's office is a weekend and evening shift. I pretty much think they work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and I really think there needs to be a constable out there for evenings and weekends, not just an extra job.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. And now we'll go back to Constable Gene DeForest for the second question. What specific changes will you make to trim your budget and streamline the operation of your precinct office?
Well, to trim my budget, that'd be kind of hard to do. Over the last 11 years, I have actually got one of the smallest budgets of all the constables in Montgomery County. I have very few people, even though over the last few years I've asked for people. Almost every year I've asked for 2 people, except for this past year. I knew that budgets were tight, and commissioners just wasn't going to give in to give anybody anything. And I understand that. Commissioners, they have a very tough job, and it's one that I wouldn't want to have. I have a hard enough time dealing with the one I have. But asking for 2 people is what I need. I'd like to get someone out there on the freeway on a full-time basis to run the freeway, to do narcotics, drug interdiction, which I do have one that goes out there occasionally. But trimming a budget, it just isn't there. The only way I can trim the budget is get some money off the freeway and get some help. Get that person out there on the freeway on a regular basis. We do work nights, and we do work weekends. We have got to do that. Serving civil process, when you're out there serving civil process, it might not get done in one day, or might not get done in one contact. You may have to go out to a location 3 or 4 times. It may have to be in the evening. It may have to be on a weekend. It's tough. These guys do a great job for me. They all work very hard. They work hard for you, the voters.
Thank you, Constable DeForest. And now we'll go to David Womack to answer the same question. What specific changes will you make to trim your budget and streamline the operation of your precinct office?
Well, Gene is right about one thing. His office is probably the smallest and least budgeted for his needs. And the reason being because he's not getting along with the commissioners. You've got to be able to get along with the commissioners to be able to have your budget responded to accordingly. If you can't work with other agencies, and other agencies mean with the police department, sheriff's department, and commissioner's court runs the purse strings. Okay, we can put in there whatever we want to in our budgets, but if we don't get along with the commissioner's court, they're not going to respond accordingly. You've got to be able to go and talk to these commissioners and say, this is why I need this, and this is the reason why. And if you can't get that response back from the commissioner's court, you can put in much budgets you want to, but until they prove it, you're not going to get it. You can wish you can get it. You can wait till Christmas to see if you get it. You're still not going to get it. So you've got to be able to work with commissioner's court hand in hand to tell them exactly why you need it, plus First of all, you got to do the work to show them that you're going to do it. If you're not going to do it to begin with, you're not going to get the money from the Commissioner's Court. Bottom line is, you've got to be able to work with other people, including Commissioner's Court. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Womack. And now Mr. David Moore, same question.
I totally agree with everything David just said. I received a copy of this budget. The operating budget for the constable's office this year is $1,330,888. Out of that, $1,270,908 is salaries and benefits. That's 95% of the budget. That leaves you 5% or $59,000 to buy supplies and work with. The big popular question has been a 10% reduction in all the forums and stuff, and you just, without a reduction of the workforce, you're not going to get a 10% reduction in this because the budget is so lean. You need to go to the commissioners and ask them for the money and prove to them why you need it and what you're going to do to earn it.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. And thank you, gentlemen, very much for your attendance at tonight's forum. We appreciate very much your candidacy and your presence.
Mr. Armstead?
No, Ryan Gable.
Ryan Gable.
Representing Ryan Gable.
Now we have Matthew Rodriguez representing Mr. Ryan Gable, who is not able to be here. Mr. Ryan Gable will not be allowed to answer questions as on the previous race, so he will make a 60-second introductory remark. Go ahead, please.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Rodriguez, and my friend Ryan Gable needs your vote to be the next constable in Montgomery County Precinct 3. But in order to secure your vote, I want to give you a couple reasons why you should vote for Ryan. Ryan is the only candidate in this race that is a recognized expert by the state of Texas in regards to the operation of a constable's agency and the duties that are mandated to them by law. Another fact is that Ryan is the only candidate that has spent his entire career, 19 years, working towards this specific position. Ryan is the only candidate that has extensive experience in both criminal law enforcement and the service of civil process, which is the foundation of a constable's duties. This experience will protect you, the taxpayer, from financial liability. Fellow Montgomery County citizens, I ask you, look at this race and make your decision because you know that this candidate, Ryan Gable, is the right choice for Montgomery County. Thank you for your time, and remember, Ryan is #1 on the ballot, and if you're able, vote Gable.
Virginia, can I say something?
Yes, please.
I spoke to Mr. Gable. I promised that I would make the announcement that he is away
Yes.
teaching a course.
Yes.
as
He
part of
committed
his
to it
employment.
over 6 months ago, and that he's out of town teaching for the JPCA. That's why he's not.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. And now Lieutenant Dan Doris will give a 30-second introduction followed by 2 questions.
Thank you very much. The crime problems we have in South County are not going to go away. And they're not going to go away, and we need the leadership, we need the teamwork, and we need the cooperation of all the law enforcement agencies to make it work. This upcoming constable's election in Precinct 3 will play an important part in that teamwork effort. The leadership of the constable's office should go to somebody who knows, understands, and has been part of the public safety effort.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Now I have.
I didn't want to pop my peas, so I didn't want to get too close to the.
I was afraid people couldn't hear you. Okay, we have 2 questions to present to you, please. In what ways has your education and experience prepared you to be the best qualified candidate for constable?
You know, that's a very broad question, and I have such a diverse law enforcement career, starting in patrol in Montgomery County, working my way to detective, major crimes detective, sergeant internal affairs, and commander of detective division. From there, I moved into the administration office. Because of that wide variety of experience that I have, both in criminal and administration, that has prepared me to take over a constable's office. When I was in the detective office, at any given time, I had the same number of 20 or more people that reported to me, and they officed in multiple geographic locations. The last 7 years, I've worked directly in the administration office Under Sheriff Gage and or Chief Deputy Randy McDaniel. That has given me the opportunity to learn the budgeting, to learn all the concepts and the things it takes to run an office. But let's talk a little bit about education, experience, and training. I have the FBI National Academy under my belt, and that's the real deal. That's the one in Quantico, Virginia. That's the one with the FBI background. That's not a one-week leadership course. I've also got Leadership Command College from Sam Houston State, which is equivalent to the FBI Academy only on the state level. And I also I've gone back to school. I've been very fortunate, a wife and 2 daughters through college. Now it's my turn.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. And now Lieutenant Dan Norris will answer the second question. What specific changes will you promote to alleviate the traffic and congestion problems in your precinct?
Okay, I just want to make sure I was thinking it through for just a minute. The traffic and congestion is something that is becoming an issue all around Montgomery County, not just in South Montgomery County. Where the constable's office can help there is to target education issues with the younger drivers and the different civil agents or other organizations throughout the district. Sometimes, though, it's only the application of law enforcement that will get drivers' attention. There's nothing that we can do as a constable's office to help improve the flow of traffic. That's certainly a county engineer's problem. But we can certainly work with them to identify areas of congestion and areas of problems.
Thank you. All right, that's all for that race because we only have one candidate who can answer questions. Introductory period. And then I will present 2 and possibly 3 questions to each of you. First of all, Mr. Kenny Spate will give his 30-second introduction.
Good evening. My name is Kenny Spate. I am running for County Commissioner Precinct 3. Can I pull this up, Mr. Book? And I am a 25-year resident of South Montgomery County. I have experience in the government sector as well as my own private business that I've operated for 25 years. I have been involved in this community in more ways than any of the other people sitting up here with me today. And I also have a bike.
Thank you. Mr. Spade, I think you feel back off from the microphone just a bit. It will help you be heard.
Okay.
Getting a lot of feedback. Thank you. Now, Mr. James Nowak will give a 30-second introduction.
I'm James Nowak, and I know Montgomery County, and I have what it takes to lead. From the years 2001 to 2010, taxes in Montgomery County have increased by 64%. Spending is increased by 52%, appraisals by 85%, and debt has increased an astonishing 270%. These are all per capita numbers from the audited financials. Enough is enough. We need a leader that has the 4 E's, the education, the experience, the energy, and the enthusiasm to lead. Vote for leadership, vote Nowak.
Thank you, Mr. Nowak. Mr. Brian Dawson will now give his 30-second introduction.
My name is Brian Dawson. I'm running for County Commissioner of Precinct 3. For the last 10 years, I have worked in the infrastructure and construction industries, working with engineers in the private and the public sector in development, working to tackle their planning issues effectively and more cost effectively and more efficiently. On top of that, I have managed our local facility with an operating budget just over $6 million. Our Precinct 3 budget,
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Now, before we go to questions, I'm going to read a brief description of what Commissioners Court does. County government's principal focus is on the judicial system, health and social service delivery, law enforcement, and road construction. Commissioners Court is the governing body of the county. The Texas Constitution specifies specifies that the court consists of a county judge and county commissioners elected by the qualified voters of individual commissioners' precinct. Now I'm going to read the first question. It will go to Mr. Kenny Spate. What experience will you bring to the office of county commissioner that will bring economic benefit to the citizens of this county?
Can everybody hear me okay this far back? My experience and background in having my own business and building it for 25 years here in Montgomery County is one thing. My 8 years of governmental experience and government sector experience working as the Director of Maintenance Services for the City of Pasadena is another. I have a tremendous amount of knowledge and understanding of this county. I've spent 25 years here getting to know, build, and work with the current County Commissioners Court. That's the reason why I'm very fortunate to be able to have the endorsement of every sitting commissioner currently on the court, including the gentleman who I'm replacing as the county commissioner, and Ed Chance. I also have worked very closely with and have the experience and the knowledge and the endorsement of Sheriff Tommy Gage, the Montgomery County Law Enforcement Association, Constable David Hill, and many others. I am very experienced and knowledgeable in the operations of the county precinct, and I look forward to the opportunity to be able to serve the constituents in South Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. Spate. Now I'll go to Mr. James Nowak with the same question. What experience will you bring to the office of county commissioner that will bring economic benefit to the citizens of this county?
I've spent 17 years in the private sector working with business owners, municipalities, and individuals, helping them plan and budget for a secure financial future. I'm the only person at this table with the expertise in finance to make certain that we have a county budget that makes sense. Having a county budget that grows and grows and grows is not the answer. We have to have responsible leadership that's going to work with the current department heads and make certain that we are growing in a manner in which is not only consistent with the population growth, but that will serve the needs of the citizens in Montgomery County. I want to make certain that by better deploying the assets that we have in this county, the taxes that we receive, we can have infrastructure in place that will secure the economic development that will propel Montgomery County into the future. With your help and my leadership, we can make Montgomery County great again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nowak. And now we'll go to Mr. Brian Dawson for the same question. What experience will you bring to the office of county commissioner that will bring economic benefit to the citizens of this county?
The experience I bring is in the construction infrastructure industry, managing those projects, managing those budgets. That will greatly impact our economics here in the county by maintaining our mobility. We're the 5th fastest growing county in the state of Texas. If we don't properly manage our growth and keep up with it, it's going to hurt our property values. It's going to diminish people's ability to get to and from work, and it's going to make us a less attractive community. So I bring not only that, but I also bring the experience of managing a facility with a budget of $6 million. County commissioner currently manages a precinct budget of about 5.2. I've managed that budget myself, not just helping other people's manage budgets. I've also run a facility, running that facility, including managing the people and the equipment. All that experience translates directly into what the county commissioner does and hitting the ground running on day one.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Now I'm going to go back to Mr. Kenny Spate, and I'm going to nod to the gallery over here, which commented on one of my questions, and we're going to ask the same question to the county commissioners. What specific changes will you promote to alleviate the traffic and congestion problems in your precinct?
South Montgomery County is currently the fastest growing area within Montgomery County. And many of the things that many of the enjoyments and pleasures that we enjoy right now come from that growth. Much of the growth is going to be spurred by some of the activity that's taking place in North Harris County, just on the other side of Spring Creek, that being the ExxonMobil campus. One of the things, because of the relationships that I have been able to develop over the years, I have been able to work with those other individuals to try to come up with joint efforts between the two counties to be able to try to look at future road projects that will help both areas, and also take advantage of other partnerships, private partnerships, in the process of doing that to help eliminate some of the traffic congestion that we're experiencing and will continue to experience.
Thank you, Mr. Spate. Mr. James Nowak will now respond to that same question. What specific changes will you promote to alleviate the traffic and congestion problems in your precinct?
First of all, I would make certain that we have a 5-year, a 10-year, and a 20-year plan in place for mobility. I've yet to be able to find our county's plan for the mobility solutions for the future. Without a plan, it's really hard to move ahead. Secondly, if we had better utilized the resources that we've had available in Montgomery County, namely the use of debt instruments to the tune of $477 million, we wouldn't have the traffic and construction, the traffic and congestion issues that we have today. We need to have a plan. We need to use our resources more wisely. And I will certainly work with all the entities involved to make certain that we get the dollars that we need from TxDOT. I'll work with our senators and our state legislators to make certain that we are squeezing every dollar from state and federal officials that we can, and give you the roads that you need to provide you with the quality of life that you moved to Montgomery County for.
Thank you, Mr. Nowak. Now, Mr. Brian Dawson will respond on that same question. What specific changes will you promote to alleviate the traffic and congestion problems in your precinct?
One of the first things we've got to do is open the lines of communication with the private sector and the development that's going on in the area. One of the things that leads to the congestion and the traffic is that each private entity is developing their own property for their own business, which is well within their rights, and we certainly don't want to overburden the private sector with any type of regulation from the county government. But we do want to work together to make sure that we, what they're doing ties into the county infrastructure program so that it benefits everyone. If they're if overdevelopment creates traffic issues, that's only going to hurt property values. And hurting property values only hurts them, and it's only going to hurt the residents of Montgomery County. It's important that we keep those lines of communication over and work together for the betterment of our county.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. I believe that will be the conclusion of our questions on this race, and I want to thank all three of you for coming. All right, we have 2 candidates present tonight. Montgomery County Constable Precinct 1. We have Commissioner Don Chumley.
Constable.
I'm sorry. Constable Don Chumley and Mr. Jim Napolitano. Each will have a 30-second introduction. Then each will respond to 2 questions, and you'll have 90 seconds on each. First of all, Constable Don Chumley will give his 30-second introduction.
I want to thank the Montgomery County ladies for having us here to speak. I'd like to acknowledge my wife, Barbara, who's here with me. She's the wind beneath my wings, and we will celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary June the 22nd. As far as my qualifications, I have 43 years as a from a deputy constable to a chief to a constable. I spent 20 years.
Thank you, Constable Chumley, very much. Mr. Jim Napolitano will now give his 30-second introduction.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Jim Napolitano, and I'd like to be your next constable for Precinct 1. I have a very long resume, which would be hard to do in 30 seconds. I've been a federal agent for the United States Secret Service. I've been a deputy for the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. I'm a small business owner, and I've worked for major oil companies doing security all over the world. I think I can do a great job in bringing that management skills here to Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll have the first question for Constable Don Chumley. In what ways has your education and experience prepared you to be the best qualified candidate for constable?
I spent 20 years with Constable Rankin in Harris County. I started out as a deputy. I worked my way up to chief. The last 23 years, I've been here as your constable in Precinct 1 in Montgomery County. I have I've served as a constable here for the last 23 years, like I said, I have the most diverse office as far as constables are concerned, in Montgomery County. The commissioners knew that I was in charge of mental health while I was in Harris County. They gave me that in the first year I was in office up here, and all the civil process. I have also been given the primary responsibility for Lake Conroe. We are proud to have now maintained a record of no boating fatalities while intoxicated for the last 4 years. I also have instituted sex offender compliance checks, and they are getting results. They are, okay, we're getting results on those. Again, the constable's office in my position has been the most diverse, having the commissioner's support, having the endorsement of Sheriff Tommy Gage, Commissioner Mike Metter, District Attorney Brett Ligon, and the Montgomery County Law Enforcement Agency is proof of the fact that I know what I'm doing with my office, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Constable Chumley. And now Mr. Jim Napolitano will respond to that same question. In what ways has your education and experience prepared you to be the best qualified candidate for constable?
Thank you. I have a degree of mechanical engineering from the University of Houston. After graduating, I went in the oil field here in Texas and moved up here to Montgomery County to work for one of the oil companies. After the downturn in the oil business, I was lucky enough to go to work for the sheriff's office here in Montgomery County, where I was a patrol officer and then promoted to sergeant. In 1986, I applied for and was granted a special agent's position with the United States Secret Service. In that time, I worked as an investigator in the Houston field office, investigating hundreds of crimes in counterfeiting, fraud, and forgery. The 1992, I was able to work my way into an international criminal case that brought Montgomery County into the limelight, and it was, unfortunately, it was a top secret case, so I can't tell you about it. So, when President Bush lost the election, I went to President Bush's detail. From there, I went to the President's detail, where I spent 5 years with the counter assault team and then on the shift. From there, I was an instructor at the academy, and then went to be the resident agent in charge of President Bush's ranch in Crawford, Texas. Those experiences brought me the ability to manage, control, and take care of budgets and all the personnel that needed to come in for those visits. With over 300 visits to the Crawford Ranch with his guests, it was a daunting task to be able to have all those men and women get to their job and take care of their. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next question will go back to Constable Don Chumley. Please address the most critical budgetary and operational needs of your precinct.
That's easy. With the growth of Montgomery County, naturally it's salary, deputies. We haven't kept up in the last 23 years that I've been here with the growth of Montgomery County. The only way we've been able to provide the services that we're providing to the citizens of Montgomery County is through my contract deputy programs, cross training, improved training. Our contract deputy programs that we have out in the field are providing officers that would otherwise, instead of being working an extra job somewhere else, we're putting them back in the neighborhoods. We're patrolling the neighborhoods on a regular basis. I ran the first time. When I ran for office, was putting officers back in the neighborhoods and patrolling. We've done that. We continue to do it. I sort of lost my train of thought, but the thing is, with the constable's office, as far as training is concerned, the only way we're going to keep up with it is by cross-training and by keeping up with the growth of the county through cross-training and trying to stay ahead of it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Constable Chumley. And now, Mr. Jim Napolitano, please answer that same question. Please address the most critical budgetary and operational needs of your precinct.
Well, the precinct is, as Constable Chumley did say, growing very quickly. The amount of people moving into the northern Montgomery County area isn't as fast as south, but it's getting there. Having the officers, and we all know, paid well to stay on the job and not have to seek extra jobs is an interesting phenomena that we deal with on a daily basis. We all, as citizens, when we ask for the police to show up, want the greatest police officer to show up at our door. But unfortunately, we want to pay him the least amount because it's taxpayers' dollars. So it is a fight that we have to fight on a daily basis to keep good, trained police officers on the job and not out seeking other employment. So having dealt with that, the school district is something that the Precinct 1 constables has to deal with up in Willis, and the protection of our children is utmost in my eyes and my vision. And keeping them safe and properly training the officers that are working in the school district is a very important issue. And I think proper training, proper ability for them to deal with the public, and their public are kids. They're dealing with the young children there in the high schools, and it's very important that they deal with those on a proper basis, that they give them the better impression of the police department than what they might see elsewhere. So I think that that's a very important issue, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill and Monroe, very much for coming, and we appreciate your responses.
Thank you, Virginia. Virginia did a wonderful job. I want to thank her. And Charles and Jim, great job timing. And the ladies from Montgomery County Republican Women, thank you for coming and helping tonight. And thank you, candidates. All of you, welcome to come to our next meeting, last Thursday of May. One more chance to meet us before the general election.